Every Dolby 5.1 workflow I've seen is subtly different. Audio has been said to be far more complicated than video. In the past, people used to say that audio is lots of very simple boxes connected together in a very complex way. These Dolby workflows seem to be the same. The boxes are reasonably easy to understand. The way we move things in and out of them and the processing that we do tends to make quite a complex workflow. This is a simple one. It's only got a dozen or so arrows on there. This is a sports provider. They're taking live sports feeds and they're recording them on Omnion servers. A lot of that live sport goes straight back out again for direct broadcast. But a lot of it's recorded and used for highlights programs. And the requirement was to have those highlights programs in Dolby 5.1 surround in multiple languages, in Arabic and English at the very least, and some other languages too. How are we going to make this work, they said. And I, as I said, thought my job would be easy. What we ended up doing was taking those live feeds in and recording them. And actually, most of those live feeds were just discrete 5.1 from the sports provider. So 6 channels of audio, front, left, front, right, centre, the 2 rear ones, and the effects channel. Make 6, I think. So that comes in on 3 AESs, which we simply recorded onto the server. The video was moved along with the audio onto a Final Cut Pro edit, where they do some mixing to make a stereo mix out of that. They'd also take the front left and front right and export that off to their dubbing house. Their dubbing house would then make a local language version, mix it with the clean effects that came in with the feed, and put it back onto the server again as a WAV file. We then needed to turn all of that into a 5.1 for that particular language. We used an application called Nayrink, which if you look them up on the web, you'll see that they make a whole load of tools that work with Dolby. What Dolby processing requires is actually a set of 6 channels and a bunch of metadata in order to go away and make that 5.1 Dolby E file. So this Nayrink application is actually quite simple. It allows you to take 3 stereo pairs or your 6 independent channels, stack them all together, set some of these Dolby E parameters, which Norbert mentioned earlier, however many there are, 25 or so. In fact, they only use 2 or 3 on this particular customer. I'm sure they'll work out what to do with the rest of them later on. The key ones are the amount of compression that you're going to use and the overall loudness level. Top tip. That then gets exported back onto our server again, where a Dolby DP600 processing unit picks that up, looks at that file, it can understand it, and it automatically converts that into a Dolby E file with all of the appropriate parameters set. It's worth mentioning that Dolby DP600 unit can do this conversion much faster than real time. It's typically 4 or 5 times faster than real time, so a 10-minute clip will take a couple of minutes to process. And the reason they went for that option was because they got multiple editing seats all working on the same workflow, and they wanted to have just one big box that did that processing, which is the way it works here. But you can integrate that within the Nayrink tools, that process, and you can buy other software tools to do the same job. I'm not a salesman for Dolby or for Nayrink, but they're 2 of the tools that I used. So we then end up with a nice AES pair back on the server, which is a Dolby E file, which we then brought back into Final Cut Pro again, and we stacked that up with the stereo pair and the other languages. And we could preview those through within Final Cut Pro by taking the outputs into a Dolby E decoder. We could then listen to the various tracks, select around and listen to the rear channels and the front channels and the effects channels and so on, make sure they're all there. We then publish back from Final Cut Pro back onto the server again, and that would then be played out via the automation and then into a Dolby processor for retransmission. So nice and straightforward. The problems we faced were, of course, all of the configuration of these boxes to make them all talk to each other and have rights access and so on. But a bigger one was choosing the right wrapper format to use. The customer wanted to use MXF. MXF made sense for them moving forward. They wanted to archive all of this stuff. But we discovered that a whole load of tools to get MXF in and out of Final Cut Pro. Final Cut Pro, as many of you will know, works natively with QuickTime. In order to get MXF in and out, you need to use a tool set to convert from MXF into QuickTime on the fly. It's actually, there's a number of tools around which all work remarkably well and make the whole process transparent to users. But because of the number of audio tracks that this customer required, we couldn't find a tool that would support that number of tracks with an MXF export. So we ended up having to use MXF for the way in, that was their house format, and then use QuickTime for the way back out again. QuickTime, you can have as many tracks as you like in there from an export from Final Cut. So if there's anybody here who makes MXF tools for Final Cut Pro, we'd like at least 16 audios, please, for the future. There are a number of companies we've talked to, actually. We went around absolutely every single one that we could think of, and all of them have now got it on their roadmap to do more channels, so but it's something to be aware of. The key bit to all of this is what appears to be simple and what appears to be a very clearly defined workflow on the outset can still take several days, even with the right people there, with the right equipment there in a test situation, can still take several days to get it absolutely right. There's always that one little issue to look at. So that's my experience of that one.